Okay, so you want to be a Navy SEAL. Forget the money for a second, because this is one of the only careers on Earth where the US government will spend upward of $1 million trying to build you, fail 7 times out of 10, and still consider that a successful business model. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it costs the Navy to create one operator, what you actually get paid once you survive, and why the same government that just spent a fortune training you is now in a bidding war with private companies just to keep you. Right now, there are roughly 2,500 active duty Navy SEALs on the planet. Not per country, total. Less than 1% of the entire US Navy. So before we talk pay, let's talk about what it costs just to become one of them. You start as a regular enlistee, and if you want a shot at the teams, everything routes through one program, BUD/S, Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training, in Coronado, California. 6 months, 3 phases. And here's the number that should stop you in your tracks. Historically, more than 70% of the people who start BUD/S don't finish it. Some classes have run even higher than that. Think about what that means in dollars. Every candidate in that pipeline is drawing a Navy salary. Every candidate needs instructors, medical staff on standby around the clock, dive pools, boats, obstacle courses. And on average, 7 out of every 10 people the Navy pours that money into will wash out before they ever put on a trident. Add up the instructor time, the facilities, the medical support, and estimates put the cost of getting just one candidate through to graduation somewhere between $500,000 and over $1 million. That's before that person has done a single day of actual SEAL work. Why would anyone run a program this financially wasteful on purpose? Because the alternative is worse. Lower the bar so more people pass, and you get operators who can't perform when the job is real. So the Navy accepts the waste. 7 failures for every success is the price of the filter. And graduation isn't the finish line, it's the starting line. From there you move into SEAL qualification training, then specialized courses in combat diving, military freefall parachuting, and advanced marksmanship. Each one running its own equipment, its own instructors, its own price tag. Add another $200,000 to $300,000 per operator for that stage alone. Kit them out with personal gear, dive rigs, weapons, survival equipment, and you're adding another $50,000 to $100,000 on top. Start to finish, from enlistment to fully mission-qualified operator, you're looking at close to 2 years, and once every phase is counted, comfortably over $1 million per finished SEAL. Now here's where the story gets ugly, because the Navy learned this lesson the hard way, and it cost a life to learn it. In February 2022, a 24-year-old candidate named Kyle Mullen finished Hell Week, the 5.5-day, no-sleep centerpiece of BUD/S that exists specifically to break people. He'd made it through, and hours after crossing that finish line, he died. The Navy's own investigation found acute pneumonia, an enlarged heart, and a training culture with what investigators called inadequate medical oversight. Candidates so afraid of being dropped that some wouldn't report symptoms, and a medical system that, in Mullen's case, wasn't there when his classmates went looking for it in the middle of the night. The fallout was massive. The Navy grounded ruck runs, mandated 6 hours of sleep before Hell Week, started randomized drug testing, and rewrote over a dozen safety protocols. 2 of the officers overseeing that class were pushed toward accountability boards. Years later, both were allowed to quietly retire instead. The point isn't the punishment. The point is this. A system engineered to filter out 70% of applicants on purpose is, by design, operating right at the edge of what a human body can survive. That's not a bug in the economics. That's the entire economic model. The Navy is buying resilience at the absolute limit of what's safe to buy, and every so often, that price gets paid in full. Okay, you survived. You've got your trident. Let's talk about what you actually make. During BUD/S itself, you're not paid as a SEAL. You're paid as a regular sailor, because technically you're not one yet. Most candidates enter around the E3 pay grade, somewhere in the low 2,000s a month. No hazard pay, no dive pay, no jump pay. You are doing the hardest program in the US military for less than an Amazon warehouse job pays, while the Navy calculates in real time whether you're worth the investment. Graduate. And everything changes overnight. You typically pin on as an E4, jumping ahead of where a normal sailor would be at that career stage. and now an entirely different pay structure kicks in, one most civilians have never heard of. Base pay is just the floor. On top of it, you stack special duty assignment pay for the hazard of the job, dive pay for being a qualified combat diver, jump pay for being parachute qualified, and depending on your specialty, demolition pay and language pay on top of that. Then come the allowances, and this is where the real number shows up. Housing allowance, completely tax-free, scaled to where you're stationed. Get assigned to Coronado, one of the most expensive housing markets in the country, and with a family, you could be pulling over $3,000 a month in housing alone. That's more than $45,000 a year the federal government never touches. Add a food allowance. Add full family healthcare through TRICARE, worth over $15,000 a year if you had to buy it yourself. Stack it all together, and the average total compensation for an active SEAL lands around $90,000 a year. Tax-free income doing a lot of the heavy lifting most civilian salary comparisons completely ignore. And that's before the Navy starts throwing bonuses at you, because remember that $1 million investment we just talked about? The Navy is terrified of watching it walk out the door. Complete BUD/S and sign an initial contract, and you can pocket an enlistment bonus up to $40,000. Hit the end of your first term and re-enlist, and selective re-enlistment bonuses have run $60,000 to $75,000, occasionally clearing $100,000, depending on how badly the Navy needs experienced operators that year. Senior enlisted willing to commit to multi-year terms have been offered retention bonuses up to $150,000 in a single lump sum. Why so aggressive? Because private security firms, defense contractors, and federal agencies are circling the exact same people, and they can pay far more than Uncle Sam ever will. Last year, the Navy filled less than 90% of its allocated enlisted SEAL positions. There's an actual talent shortage. So every bonus number you see is the Navy bidding against corporate America for people it just spent $1 million building, and sometimes losing that bid anyway. Climb far enough, and the ceiling gets genuinely enormous. Very few SEALs ever reach flag rank, but the path tops out at 4-star Admiral, commanding organizations like US Special Operations Command. At that level, base pay alone hits the statutory cap around $15,000 a month, roughly $187,000 a year in base pay before a single allowance is added. Layer in executive housing and senior leadership benefits, and total compensation at that tier can clear $250,000 annually. That's the extreme outlier, the tiny fraction who spend 20+ years climbing not just through the teams, but through the entire command structure above them. So here's the whole picture in one line. The Navy spends over $1 million and accepts a 70% failure rate to build you, pays you almost nothing while you're being built, then spends the rest of your career trying to outbid the private sector to keep you from leaving. And somewhere in the middle of that math is a 24-year-old from Yale who did everything the Navy asked of him and didn't survive the process designed to test whether he could. Let's actually run the numbers the way you'd run them for any other career decision. Say you enlist at 20, make it through BUD/S, and serve a full 20-year career, retiring as a senior enlisted operator. Between base pay, tax-free housing, special pays, and a handful of re-enlistment bonuses along the way, you could reasonably clear $2 to $2.5 million in total lifetime compensation before you ever collect a dime of pension. Walk out at 20 years, and you're eligible for a military retirement that pays roughly 40% of your final base pay for the rest of your life. A benefit that would cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to replicate on your own through a private annuity. Add in the post-service market for former SEALs, where private security firms and defense contractors routinely offer 6-figure salaries specifically because of the trident on your resume, and the 20-year version of this career can look, on paper, like a genuinely solid financial decision. But run the numbers on the front end instead, and the picture flips. During those first 6 months at BUD/S, you're earning less than $30,000 a year while attempting one of the most physically destructive training programs that exists, with roughly a 7 in 10 chance you don't finish and walk away with nothing but the injuries. The Navy's own return on investment only shows up if you survive the part where the investment is heaviest. Miss that window, like Kyle Mullen did, and none of the back-end numbers ever apply to you at all. None of these numbers explain why anyone signs up in the first place. Ask almost any operator, and money is nowhere near the top of the list. The compensation exists to keep the pipeline sustainable, not to explain the motivation. Nobody rings the bell during Hell Week because the housing allowance wasn't generous enough, and nobody who makes it through does it for the bonus structure waiting on the other side. If you want to see the other side of this coin, what it costs to own the actual hardware operators like these carry into the field, go check out our video on the economics of owning the world's most popular rifle. Links right here.